Hello, welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer. In the video today I'm going to be going over a build. First of all, the basic premise, fairly easy to understand. I'm going to make a fighter. This class. Going to make a fighter, take the archery fighting style. When he gets level 3, you're going to pick Battle Master, pick up 3 of your preferred maneuvers, not including riposte. And when you get to level 4, pick the martial adept feat and pick up 2 more maneuvers. The one maneuver you should not pick up and use is riposte, and that is because we're mostly going to be focusing on ranged attacks, and for riposte to work it needs to be in melee range, and so we can leave that one out and focus on the other 5. For the rest of the things in this build, the background doesn't really matter too much. I prefer folk hero because it's easy to pick up inspiration points by saving people. Now race. I'm not going to give you a particular choice of race because there are plenty of viable races to use in this build. So I'm going to go over each of the viable choices one at a time. Going to start off with, well, all types of elf because they get a dexterity bonus. So you could pick high elf, and a few cantrips could be useful here. So for fighting, and because we're a fighter, having concentration doesn't really matter. What I mean is there aren't other spells that use concentration normally for a fighter. So sometimes underground dancing lights can be used to nullify shadows, which is good for fighting there. Friends is also a good choice for non-combat situations. Light is good because it doesn't require concentration. Mage Hand is also a decent choice. Although it does require concentration, the Mage Hand itself can provide another target for enemies, which then absorbs 1 more attack. Wood Elves are good. They also get dexterity. The Wisdom Plus here isn't important. Likewise, the Intelligence here for the High Elf isn't important. Good thing about the Wood Elf, and a very strong thing, is the movement starts off at 35 feet, and they're proficient in Stealth, not to be sniffed at. Drow can be useful. They get the dexterity bonus here. The Charisma, not so important. And they get the Dancing Lights and Fairy Fire spells. Pretty awesome spells, actually. Not bad. Although the human can sometimes be seen as a little bit boring, one good thing about the human is we can have Strength at 14, Dexterity at 16. This is one thing you definitely want, is Dexterity at 16, because we're going to be using ranged attacks. And Constitution at 16 also. If you want, you could maybe have Strength at 16, which gives you more choice for melee weapons, and a decent chance to hit in combat, and a high strength is always good. I would advise either Constitution or Strength at 16. Definitely Dexterity has to be 16, and being human gives us that choice. I wouldn't pick Githyanki because they don't get a Dexterity bonus. Same thing goes for Dwarves and Tieflings, so I'd say they're not as viable. Half Elf, another good choice. We can choose to have a Dexterity bonus, maybe Constitution, and we also get 4 stats at level 1 instead of the usual 3. So when it comes to abilities, what you can do is make sure you haven't got any negative modifiers, and then pick another one to have +1. If you want to, you could have a negative modifier in one of them and then have 16 in Constitution and Dexterity, or Strength and Dexterity as I mentioned earlier. And also as a half elf, a high half elf, you could pick a cantrip. You could pick Mage Hand, for example. A wood half elf, similar thing with the stats, except we also get proficiency in stealth and the extra 35 feet of movement. And as a fighter, there's almost no reason to be a wood elf compared to a wood half elf, because the only thing that the wood elf provides on top of it are these proficiencies in weapons, which as a fighter we're going to have proficiency in all weapons anyway. And lastly, halflings could work out. The strong heart halfling has got the constitution modifier of +1. And dexterity +2, they got lucky and brave, which some of you might like. The downside to a halfling though, 2 downsides actually. One downside is they've only got 25 feet of movement. Second downside is they don't have dark vision. But to get 16, 16, 14, you will have to have negative modifiers. Some of you might not like that. But essentially all of these races are viable. We're not stuck with one particular race. What I'm going to go with, Mage Hand. Constitution. I'm going to go with a 14, 16, 14 build with a 12 on Charisma, just in case I'm speaking with my main character. Another good choice for the extra +1 is Wisdom, because of quite a few spells do target Wisdom for saving throws. For the actual skills that you pick, up to you really, it doesn't really matter. Most of these don't come up in combat. Maybe we pick Acrobatics. And mathematics isn't a bad choice, helps you shove a bit better. Perception's not a bad choice either. I don't know, let's go with acrobatics and athletics. Next thing I'm going to show you is the one magic item. One item I'd really suggest that you do pick up for this character. One piece of equipment you should be looking out for the control archer is a +1 ranged weapon. Obviously a heavy crossbow +1 would be better, but the +1 to hit is what we're really looking for. We're not getting it for the damage. So here, this is Damon inside the druid camp. I can buy the light crossbow. You will find +1 weapons inside the goblins camp from the traders there, if you kill them or buy them. Obviously it could be nice to have the Misty Step necklace or a Crusher's ring. Aside from having a +1 weapon, it's probably a good idea to give the fighter the Give Yankee half plate, so you have a 15 + 2, so 17 armor class from your armor. And then since we're not going to be in melee, you may as well wear a shield. I would advise dual wielding for characters who are going to be in melee and can utilize that bonus action attack. But since hopefully we're not going to be in melee, we may as well protect ourselves with a shield. Before I show you this build in action, I think it's worth going over a couple of downsides or things to think about at least while playing with this build. First of all, it is on your fighter, and you know, it's probably traditional, especially in a 4-person party, to have a fighter on the front lines trying to absorb hits, whereas this fighter's going to be best just a little bit away from the front lines. It doesn't mean they have to be stood really far away, but at least out of range where they don't get disadvantage on their attack rolls. And secondly, they are using their level 4 ability score improvement for a feat instead, so their dexterity isn't going to be 18. They're not going to have +4 to the hit and +4 to the damage with finesse weapons or ranged weapons. But part of that is covered by having the archery fighting style. So the ranged attack with a +1 weapon at least is +8, which is better than Astarion's +7. He's got 18 in dexterity. The second downside isn't so bad, I think, with the archery fighting style, but the first one will probably make you think about your party composition at least. But that's going to be up to you. Everyone's got their own preferences for their party and who is in their party. So I just want to reiterate, at level 3, pick the Battlemaster subclass. Just don't pick Riposte. We're hopefully going to be using ranged weapons most of the time, so Riposte won't come up as much, hopefully. And then at level 4, we'll pick up the other 2 Battlemaster maneuvers. So by the end of it, we're going to have 5 out of the possible 6. And so when you do get to level 4 and you get to choose your feat, swap the feat out, go for Martial Adept, and then pick the 2 maneuvers that you do want to use, leaving one behind. Let's accept that. And now we see here the menacing attack, trip attack, pushing attack, disarming attack, and then in the attack bar, or the shortcut bar, we have rally. Having so many different options is lovely. This isn't necessarily a time where you would need to use one of the maneuvers. These guys don't have very many hit points. They've got more than my archer could do. Alright, 1d10 + 3, they're just above that limit. So the secondary good thing about this is that each of these maneuvers, barring rally, does an extra 1d8 damage. Let's try to use disarming attack. Now that just happened to not work out. Being a fighter, because when we get action surge, obviously you do need to think about when you're going to use this. It's only once per short rest action surge. So maybe I want to trip, maybe it's the next bar, trip the other person up, or attempt to. There we are, that was the extra damage, 17. Killed that person in one hit. And without the extra 1d8 damage, I would only have done 9. We wouldn't have been dead. I also want to talk here about which maneuver you choose to use if you do choose to use one, because most of the maneuvers require a strength saving throw to resist the secondary effect of the attack, such as trip attack and pushing attack and disarming attack. However, menacing attack targets wisdom. So before you go and hit an enemy with one of the particular maneuvers, do just check. Right. So the ogres here, for example, their wisdom is 7, which means they get a -2, not exactly a bonus, but they get a -2 to their wisdom saving throws. Whereas for their strength, which is 19, they get a +4. Plus who knows if they are proficient in either of these throws. So it's generally better to target the stat that your enemy is lowest in, and that will really depend on the enemy. Goblins, for example, tend to be not so strong and actually not necessarily very wise either, so you've got a better choice there. So in fact, for the second attack in this fight, I'll try and use Menacing Attack. I could use it on Chuck, but considering he won't be doing much with his action anyway, maybe I'll try and use it on Lump the Enlightened. And just to make sure, right, Wisdom 7, this doesn't mean it's guaranteed to work. It's just a better chance of it working. And there we are. Chuck is frightened. And also looking at the DC, it says the DC is 13. Now let's have a quick look at where that's come from, because we're not told exactly. I think even in this sheet here, it won't tell us where 13 comes from. And it might even say that our spell difficulty class is 10, because this isn't a spell. So where's this 13 come from? It's going to have come from the same sort of formula as the spell save DCs for casting. So it's going to be 8 plus the proficiency bonus, which is 2 at level 4, plus then usually the highest of either strength or dexterity bonuses. Since dexterity is higher, that'll be plus 3. So 13. And now Lump won't really do very much on his turn. So there, we didn't really see anything happen. It was Lump's turn, but he didn't do anything. Which is great, because in this particular fight, Lump is the dangerous one. So this is another situation where another maneuver, if it lands, will be useful. So I'm going to get a star in here to go and hit Chuck with his melee attacks. But I want him to have advantage. So let's find trip attack. This 95% is the chance to hit, not the chance that the trip attack will work, but the trip will work. But this is the downside of attacking an enemy that has a high strength score. They made a saving throw. Right, they get a plus 4 modifier, so it's not certain that it will work. But if that had worked, then a star in, go in, do a sneak attack, and then get 2 offhand attacks with advantage, which would have been great. Right, you can use disarming attack on Chuck. So one thing I've noticed with the ranged disarming attack is it doesn't tell us if they pass or save the saving throw, but I saw the weapon fall out of Chuck's hand there. This is great because it means Chuck now has to either go and pick up the weapon, which will use some movement, and equip the weapon, which is an action, or ignore it and just come over this way, in which case they're not hitting us with this nasty Gnarl's tree branch. So I'm here in a different fight, in a bit of a bad situation as things go. Got Gale on the front line here, next to 2 of these red caps. This is where the control archer is going to come into play. I just want to point out that one of the benefits of having a +1 weapon and the archery fighting style is, although I've got disadvantage, it's a 64% chance. This is dependent on the armor class of the red caps, obviously. And with the melee weapon, it's 65. So even with disadvantage, almost as good with a ranged weapon as I am a melee weapon. In this instance, I'm going to go with a melee weapon, because I don't really want to have a disadvantage on my attacks, and 65% is better than 64. And again, let's quickly check their stats, because although red caps look small, they're fey. Their strength score stat is really high, 18, which means they get a +4. However, the wisdom is 12. So in this instance, I'm going to choose a menacing melee attack. It's only 65% chance, it's not a great chance to hit. There's a downside. I've got a choice to shove them maybe. I could use action surge. I could use potion of speed. Let's use the potion of speed first. Try again. One last time. Well, I do want to point out though, every time I'm missing, I'm not using a superiority die. I've still got 5. So it doesn't matter if you miss. Keep trying. Now they made the saving throw, it just happened, you know. But I think the main point from that really is superiority die only get used if you hit with the attack. Also, I've been using all these maneuvers, just trying to show them off. Do keep in mind you don't have to use maneuvers. For here, for example, there'd be no point, because there's only 4 hit points left. So if I hit, they're going to die anyway. Now we're doing a waste of a die if I'd used up one of them. And perhaps instead, since I can see Starion and Gale are getting hurt a bit, this is a chance to use Rally. It's only a bonus action. And now Starion is protected a tiny bit. So there's not a huge amount more to show. This whole build is mainly just about having versatility and options during combat. So here's Gandrel. I mean, this is going to be an easy fight anyway. But for example, I know he's a little bit dangerous with his crossbow, although he'll probably throw some things if he uses his crossbow. Try and use disarming attack. There, it's worked out. His heavy crossbow is now on the floor. And he automatically switched to his melee weapon, which isn't so dangerous with. And then, just because I want to show it off, I love disarming weapon by the way, is let's try the trip attack. Maybe trip attack would be better here, gives everyone advantage. I passed the saving throw. Oh well, what can you do? Well, what I can do for the video is take another potion of haste. Try one more time, look at the health. Right, I'm actually doing a fair amount of damage here. He's prone. Starion goes next. Get his sneak attack in. And 2 offhand attacks. Oops. Never mind that. Oh, he just missed that. Oh well. One downside about trip attack is that enemies just get up very quickly afterwards. So it's only going to be good if you can get attacks in before their turn, which is why I checked the turn order and can see Astarion was going to get his attack, his action, his round, his turn before Gandrel does. Alright, so that's been it. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I really enjoy the 2 new battle maneuvers. Also don't want to lose out on the old ones as well. Let me know what you think. I'm going to try use one more I haven't used in the video so far. Nope, not that one. Pushing attack ranged. I don't know what the chances are. I might just kill him. Yeah. Down he goes. I wouldn't advise you use 3 or 4 superiority dice on a single enemy like Gandrel. Alright, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Do let me know what you think of this build, whether you would change anything, what choice of race you would have made. Ooh, he's got stuff.